American Pride Roasters is coffee from the heartland of America. Based out of Des Moines, Iowa, APR Coffee brings history to your coffee mug every morning. Try the Jefferson, a smooth Nicaraguan coffee with real vanilla bean, or the Franklin, a French-roasted Colombian coffee. If you can't make up your mind, we have 2-pound samplers featuring all of our founding flavors. For all your coffee needs, check out AmericanPrideRoasters.com. Historically great coffee. Hi, everyone. This is Susan Knowles, and this is a special edition of Stand for Truth Radio called Knowles on the News. I want to be able to bring you information that you may not be hearing in the mainstream media, but information that you really need to know about, and perhaps information that you really need to do some more research on to gather more information. You know, we have a tendency to hear something in the news or see something on the internet and basically take it as gospel. And we have to stop doing that. You know, I think that's what a lot of people did with Obama, regretfully, or regrettably so, I should say. And I think that we need to stop doing that. You know, as people who are in the GOP looking for the right candidate to lead this country and lead it out of the hole that it's found itself in for almost 8 years now, we need to really stop and gather information. And we'll be talking about that a little bit further on in the show when we go into more detail about the candidates and why or why not for each particular candidate that we're going to discuss today. But first, I wanted to start out with an article that I wrote on TheBlaze. And if you go to TheBlaze /contributions, you will see my article there. And it's called Recent Arrests Prove There is No Such Thing as a Lone Wolf Jihadist. And I wrote that article after I had an expert on my show last week. His name is Dr. Timothy Furnish. He's a U.S. Army veteran and Islamic world expert. And he holds a Ph.D. in Islamic, African, and world history. He really knows what he's talking about. And he's talking about a number of things on the show, and you may want to just go and take a listen to the podcast of the show, because he's bringing out information that you're just not going to hear from the administration, and you're not going to hear from mainstream media. Now, recently in the news, I posed the question, was there a lone wolf scenario that was thwarted when 2 young adults were arrested in Mississippi for allegedly attempting to join the Islamic State? Now, both of these young people, they're probably look to be in their 20s, both former students of Mississippi State University, one by the name of Muhammad Ada Dakala, and the other Jalen Deshaun Young. Both had planned to marry each other and cross over into Turkey and then into Syria to join ISIS. Now, this Miss Young, as you may recall, also is the person who praised the recent shooting in Chattanooga, Tennessee, that took the lives of 4 unarmed U.S. Marines and a sailor, when she posted her elated feelings online. Basically, she was, so happy that these people had been killed by, quote unquote, one of her own, an Islamic State terrorist, who, again, people probably looked at and said, oh, that's a lone wolf. So instead of them being able to go to Turkey and then cross over into Syria, now they'll be answering charges in federal court. And there was also another potential lone wolf situation that was developing. A 20-year-old Jordanian national who lived in New Jersey was arrested by federal agents in August and charged with supporting the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, according to reports. Now, the allegations against him are that he conspired with others in New York and New Jersey by offering to provide the Islamic State with both personnel and services. And supposedly what he did was he conspired with his brother and interestingly enough, a former singer in a rock band and a resident, Samuel Rahamin Topaz. They were, again, part of the co-conspiracy along with another person from Queens who was going to potentially help the Islamic State. The brother told the FBI in a post-arrest interview that he and the other brother and the two co-conspirators all watched ISIL propaganda videos together and discussed going overseas to join ISIS. That's basically all you need to have for a conspiracy. So he's pretty much locked into that, and we'll see what happens with the other people. But my question I posed were, are these lone wolves? Are these people the ones that they want to be with ISIS? They want to be part of the Islamic State, but are they really? If they were to have gone and, let's say, killed somebody in the United States before there was an opportunity to catch them and put them into custody, would that have been what we were saying in the news was a lone wolf scenario? Another lone wolf out to kill Americans. There are no official, formal ties to the Islamic State. Therefore, we're just going to look at them as lone wolves. Now, as I said, I recently interviewed Dr. Timothy Furnish. And if you are interested in learning more about him, go to mahdywatch.org. That's his website, mahdywatch.org. Some people pronounce that's mahdywatch.org. I asked him why the Obama administration and those in the mainstream media like to refer to individuals as lone wolves when they're involved in such incidences in the United States, such as the recent shooting in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the Fort Hood, when they're clearly influenced by the Islamic State. I mean, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't be determined by whether or not a person received a personal phone call from somebody in the Islamic State, or if they just read the information and were so taken by the Islamic State that they decided to join. But anyway, getting back to it, he said that, we make too much of whether or not someone is connected to ISIS. There's a true reason, or there's a real true sense, in which it doesn't matter whether you formally belong. And he claimed the goal was to promote jihadism. That's what the goal is. That's what the goal is in any type of organization. You want to promote what you're doing and be successful in carrying out your mission. Not unlike a lot of other organizations. It just so happens that this organization, the Islamic State, has criminal intent involved in it, wanting to behead and kill all infidels. So we really, shouldn't be looking at whether or not they received formal training or formal indoctrination or even a formal recognition. It's just a matter of that they're willing to be a part of this group and carry out their goal. Furnish went on to say that all that is really necessary to become a jihadist is to read the verses in the Quran and get hooked up with a mosque or an Islamic terrorist leader online. You just have to kind of go to the mosque, start worshiping there, quote unquote, and sooner or later, that's good enough. That's all you really need. He said there are not lone wolves at all. They can read the Quran to get motivated to do violence to non-Muslims. He also said that Muslim magazines published by the Islamic State have been calling for Muslims in the West to just attack the police or military or attack where you are. He stressed again that formally joining with an Islamic State group is not a necessary requirement to wage jihad, and that those shootings and beheadings in America are not lone wolf events, but are indeed acts of jihad encouraged by the Islamic State. And, he had a lot more to say about the subject. And I'm talking about the subject of ISIS. We also talked about Israel and Iran. So I hope that you will go and listen to the podcast or listen to a past, archive show. And if you go to the TheBlaze article that I wrote, down at the bottom you will see a link to listen to the podcast of the show. Very interesting things that you will not hear this administration say, because they will continually say, oh, this is just a lone wolf. I mean, I don't know how many lone wolf attacks we need before it's finally taken seriously that these are people that are all throughout the United States and elsewhere that are acting on behalf of the Islamic State organization. And again, there's an argument to be made that the administration is very much aware of the fact that this isn't lone wolf attacks, that these are indeed a part of the, of the whole Islamic terrorism. But, since our president doesn't like to talk about Islam being connected with the Islamic State terrorist group, he's probably not going to talk about it. The mainstream media, who is in his, they're in his pocket, they're not going to talk about it. So you're going to get very little information. But you will get information from experts like Dr. Furnish, who, this is what they do. This is their life's work. Now, I will tell you also that he is coming out with some new books. He's in the process right now, as he shared on the show. He's in the editing process of new books. So it should be very interesting to see what further things that he has to say on the subject. And again, he is an expert in the field, whereas the administration, who's afraid to connect Islam in any way with the Islamic State terrorist group, is not, obviously is not an expert. And the people in his administration, the cabinet, and people that he relies upon, who knows what they know, but obviously they're not sharing any pertinent information, any information that means anything that Americans want to know. I mean, Americans are very smart. You only have to watch a couple of times the beheadings in America, the shootings where they're yelling out Allahu Akbar. You only have to see that a couple of times, and that lets you know there is a connection. This is something that's very serious, something that apparently the administration doesn't want to talk about and see as serious, but the American public can't be fooled. They're just not as stupid as the Obama administration would like for us to be. And then we also have in the news an actor from Lord of the Rings who basically said that the Western inaction and political correctness in the face of Islamic terrorism threatens civilization as we know it. There is an extraordinary silence in the West, he goes on to say. And basically Christianity in the Middle East and in Africa is being wiped out. I mean, not just ideologically, but physically. And people are being enslaved and killed because they are Christians. And your country and my country are doing nothing about it. Absolutely. And until January 2017, nothing else is going to be done about it. Christians, every day we see in the news about how the Christians are fleeing the Islamic State, and yet we do nothing about it. It's really amazing because all we had to do was just fly over a couple of times and decimate these people off the face of the planet. And we haven't done that, and we're not going to do that. And we have an administration who wants to play nice with the Islamic State as they kill people and just leave them to continue to kill more. Now, if this were Muslims being killed in these countries, wiped out like the Christians are, then we would see this president acting quickly to go over and stop that, I believe. I really think that he's more interested in helping people of other nations than he is people in the United States, because I think that's where his heart lies. I think that's where the political agenda lies, et cetera, et cetera. And so this actor of Lord of the Rings, he's absolutely right. His country, our country, we're doing nothing about it. In the meantime, we're watching just an increase of the abuses that are going on. Just recently, I recall something in the news where these women were killed, Christian women, because they refused to have sex with the leaders of the Islamic State. I think there were about 100 plus women that were executed for that. Women all the time, being disfigured by acid and other horrible things that are happening. Other Christians being beheaded. We see this all the time. And yet, what are we doing about it? We fly over once, drop something, go, we're not serious about taking these people out. We're just not. And I really don't see us getting serious in doing that. There's just too much going on. And I want to caution people, whenever you read something and you see something, you really need to start looking at it yourself. Don't just take everybody else's word for it. Really go out there, do some digging. I know everybody is busy, but this is a life and death situation these days. It really and truly is. I mean, there's been talk about, is ISIS at the Texas border? Are there ISIS cells in the United States just waiting for the word? I think the word's already gone out. They want jihad. They've said do it, and everybody that is prone to be that way is going to start doing it. It may be in the beginning, an occasional something that happens here and there. We may be getting a little bit better at stopping it before it happens, but it's real. And we can't just go about our daily lives and pretend that it's not happening, or say, well, I really don't have time to worry about that. I've got to worry about, the soccer game that I got to take little Johnny and little Susie to over the weekend. And I'm not putting that down. Maybe that sounded a little bit like I was. But as compared to what's going on and Christians being beheaded and killed, then I think that probably doesn't rank really high up there. Those little soccer games just don't make the top 10 when you're talking about people losing their lives because of their religious beliefs and the fact that they're not joining ISIS. I think people in the United States think perhaps we don't need to worry, that's never going to happen here. Well, it is already happening here. It has already happened here, and it's going to continue happening here because we are just not being very proactive in the administration to wiping these people off the face of the earth. We're not going to be able to play nice with them and they'll just get along and like us. That's not going to happen. For all those that are out there thinking if we're just nice enough and we can just coexist, they don't want to coexist. They want to rule the world and wipe you out unless you become one of them. Okay? So forget the coexisting part. It's not happening. It's not there. It's not a part of who they are. It's not in their mission statement, okay? It's not in their organization's mission statement. They're not us. They don't have the same philosophies. So stop looking at them as if they're, born and raised in America and have the philosophies that, hey, we'll just get along and we'll just coexist. No, not going to happen. And we need to start figuring that out pretty fast here. Now, I want to move on a little bit to what's happening in Ferguson. Once again, we have the anniversary of Michael Brown, and here we go again. Just a reminder, and I'm sure everybody knows, the officer in the Michael Brown shooting was found to be innocent of any wrongdoing. Michael Brown, unfortunately, walked into a convenience store, was pushing and shoving, at least what I saw on video, the store clerk. Apparently had taken some cigars out of the store without paying for them. Started walking down the middle of the street, had a confrontation with the police officer who was still in his car. Had a struggle at some point ensued, and the officer's life was threatened, and he shot and killed Michael Brown, who experts, not me, experts who looked at everything, said that he was coming back to do the officer harm. And when he was shot, he laid in the street. Some say it was approximately 4 hours. Just a tragic, unfortunate event all the way around. But we can't overlook facts. And honestly, I think what's going on in Ferguson, it doesn't matter what the facts are, because it's just a culmination of years of perceived injustice, and I'm talking like 200 years perceived injustice, and anger that is out of control for some of the people that are in Ferguson, some of those that are rioting and looting. I grew up in the South. I've seen this firsthand. I've gone to school and been ridiculed along with my friends because of the fact that we were white. And that was it. We didn't have to do anything wrong. We just had to be there. Girls' hair it was set on fire walking down the hallway. Girls and boys were threatened. I've been in the lunchroom with chairs that were flying across the room, all trying to have lunch. And I don't know if you remember the hat pins they used to have, probably, I'm guessing, back in the 40s. I mean, they're long, they're sharp, and they hurt. Where we had, just because, again, we were white, had those jammed into spines, that, girls that were sitting on the wall at school, having those stuck into their backs as punishment for being white. So I get it. I get what's happening. I've lived through it. What I'm seeing is very reminiscent of what I lived through in the South during the racial riots. And it's sad to really see it coming back again. I thought we had left those times forever, hoping we had left those times forever. Not saying, I'm not gullible, naive to think that the wrongs that were perceived and some actual, that there haven't been, they haven't been resolved. I get that. But I also get that there's a better way of resolving these issues. And I think, that after the shootings in Charleston, people were so peaceful and people had opinions and they had anger and frustration. But they didn't take it out by destroying their community and going after every white person or, every cop or whomever the target was at the time. They just went about business in a legal, orderly fashion without raised tempers, without looting, rioting, and everything else. And I really was hoping that would be a great example for the world to look at, for the people in Ferguson to look at and say, hey, there's a better way. Now, perhaps the people in Ferguson saw that as somehow weak, but you can look at Ferguson and tell that a lot of people think what they're doing is very weak and is very cowardly. Standing out there and shooting people, breaking windows and all that. How is that going to resolve anything? That is only going to turn people against your cause. And maybe you don't care. And maybe you just want to vent. But eventually that's going to catch up with you. Now, I watched on Periscope the other night when all this was going down in Ferguson. And there was a a young black reporter who was doing an excellent job, I might add, of filming the chaos that was going on. And he was from WPIX Channel 11. I believe that's out of New York. Excellent, excellent job, excellent commentary. Walking among the crowd, and predominantly black people in the crowd, and literally it got to a point where they were coming after him. They were so upset with him for filming that they were like, you better get out of here or else. And he's like, whoa, I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to stay and find out what the or else is. Now, I don't know what this young black man did to these other, black individuals. What did he do? He's just there doing his job. And why did everybody hate him all of a sudden? So, there's so much anger. And when you get that kind of anger, it's not about reason anymore. It's just about, let me just get this out. Let me just vent. And unfortunately that night on the memorializing of the Michael Brown killing, another, I think it was an 18-year-old, got shot by a police officer and was in, had to be taken to the hospital. And supposedly this was a friend of Michael Brown's, and I guess when they did a rap sheet on him, he had some alleged criminal activity in his past. We can't hold these type of individuals up. We can't make these people role models for other young men and women to follow. We really need to come back to a sense of reason here. And, I know people are going to say, well, you're a white person. What do you know? What do you know about all this? I know just about as much as anybody else would know who didn't have to live through it. Just like the people who are having to live through it today when they're saying that there's discrimination going on. I was discriminated again merely because I was white. I have been discriminated against in my life in earlier years merely because I was a female. I know it's not the same type of discrimination that black people, Asians, or anybody else has gone through. But I have an inkling of an understanding, and I know from that inkling of an understanding that rioting, looting, shooting, hurting other people is not the way to get things resolved. If you go back and you look at Dr. Martin Luther King, that is not what he espoused. He didn't say go out and riot and loot. He said go out there, be tenacious, get the point across, march in the streets, sit at the counters, and whatever you have to do, but no violence. And all those that advocated violence, eventually ended up in jail or something else. Malcolm X, horrible example of what you should do. And, I think if Dr. King were here today, he would be saddened because his vision was that all races would come together. And it is very sad that we just can't look at each other and say, we're all children of God. I don't know why we can't do that. But apparently, that's something that is just going to have to wait until the next life. It's not going to happen. The closest it came was in Charleston. And it was a fleeting moment. If we could just have more of the moments that we saw in Charleston, if we could just bring people together long enough to see that we're all just children of God, that we all have struggles, that not everybody hates everybody else because of the color of their skin. I know, frankly, and I know it's going to upset some people, I don't really care what color skin you are. I care how you treat me. I don't really care. I don't even care if you're male or female. All I want to know is, are you going to treat me well? Are you going to be Christianly towards me? That's what matters to me. I recognize the color of skin. I recognize their different cultures. I recognize the strengths and weaknesses of people. I get all of that. But I only care about how you're going to treat me, how you're going to treat other people. And I really think if we all could just concentrate on that for a while, instead of, decimating the flag, burning down buildings, knocking out people as they walk down the street. I mean, none of that. Temporarily that may help you and how you feel about yourself, but in the long run, you know that it's not going to help you. And perhaps we have people that are just so far gone they don't really care. And that's what we're going to get, and that's what we're going to have to try to deal with in some way. It's very sad. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think, as we enter in the times that we're in, we're probably going to see more depraved type of behavior that we're going to sit and just shake our heads and say, gosh, I wish it could be different. But I think that we all, every day, should continue, no matter what, to be a part of the people who say, I'm not going to be that way. You may want to be that way. That may be how you want to live your life. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to show respect, compassion, and love towards my fellow man. And you have to do that no matter what. And if you end up as angry as the people that you're watching in Ferguson or someplace else, and you're shaking your head and you're just as angry and you're doing things just as bad, well then, you're no different. But you just have to live your life a different way and hope that sooner or later people will come around. And if they don't, so be it. Your life is the way it's supposed to be lived. That's what's important. Now, I want to look at some other things that have come up in the news lately. We've gotten a little bit beyond the debates, thank God. The GOP presidential debates, what a debacle. It wasn't a debate, it was a debacle. It was a time when the moderators became the news. And I've said to people, I don't want game playing. What we need is a game plan. I don't know, it became very clear to me during that debate, and to others as well, that Fox News has an agenda. They know who it is that they want to win the presidential nomination, and they'll do everything they can to take out the front runner. And I think, honestly, thinking about this some more, I believe that if, let's say Rand Paul, if he were in the number one spot right now, they would be doing everything they can to get rid of him. Right now they're focused on Trump because he is leading the polls. And people in the beginning, and I think I fell into that category too, people thought, they're just doing that because it's Donald Trump. No, really, in hindsight, I think they would be doing that to whoever is in the top spot. I honestly believe that from what I've seen, and the kid gloves on some people and the less time for others. I really do think that they're headed for Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is their man, and they just want to take out as many people as they can. What we saw was just a strike force, if you will, that came out gunning to get the top runner out. I mean, it's so sad. We see our own people. We think, that Fox is on our side. Obviously, from what I saw, that's no longer true. I don't even know if it ever really was, but I mean, it was just so painfully obvious to me. And immediately after the debates, people on social media were attacking each other. Oh my God, you're for Donald Trump, and they're still going at it. You're for Donald Trump. Oh my gosh, why are you for Donald Trump? As I've said so many times before, the longer you talk about Trump, the longer he's going to be in the attention, in the top, on the minds of the American public. People like him because he's their release valve. I've talked about this before in articles I've written for TheBlaze. It's the release valve. People are sick and tired not being able to say what's on their mind, sick and tired of political correctness. Donald Trump gave everybody an opportunity, and is still giving everybody an opportunity, to say, hey, we're the little guys, and we're not going to take it anymore. And the thing you have to remember about Donald Trump, he's not one of us. I don't know about you. Looking at my bank account, I'm not a billionaire. So you have to keep that in mind. Not saying he's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. I just have to come right out and tell you. I don't think Donald Trump has what it takes to be the president of the United States. I don't think our current president does either. I think that, you need somebody that has a well-rounded background that is going to really listen this time, listen to their advisors, those in the military and otherwise, who tell you what you need to know, and not just tell you what they think you want to hear, but what you need to know, and more importantly, what this country needs to know. I don't think Donald Trump is that person. Now, there's still a long time to go, and it may change my mind. I kind of doubt it, but I think that instead of just jumping on the Donald Trump bandwagon, you have to go out again and do your own research. You have to find out who this person really is. And not so much of like, oh, wow, he's in my corner and we can fight together. No, what can Donald Trump do that he says he's going to do? And have other candidates lied to us? Yes. Yes, okay? But we need to stop just sort of finding somebody that we think is saying what we want them to say. We have to find somebody who can actually do what they say they're going to do and actually make a difference. And I don't see that with Donald Trump. But at the same time, I'm not willing to have people come on and do what's obviously an intent to get him out of the way and have the moderators do that. Let the candidates win or lose on their own. They don't need moderators. It reminds me of, Candy Crowley with Obama coming out in support of him during the debate with Mitt Romney. Stay out of it. Ask the questions and move on. Your job is to ask the questions, keep it flowing so that we can get information. I know people thought that, that the problem is, Donald Trump, if he can't handle that question, he can't handle anything. That's not the point. And I know other candidates were asked some tough questions. You're like, hey, Ted, what did God say to you? Oh, that's a really tough question. I wanted to hear from all of the candidates. What are you going to do? What's your foreign policy position? What are you going to do about fixing the problems here in the United States? How are you going to get us back to number one rather than where Obama has us right now in the view of the world's eyes? What are you going to do about the UN butting in so much into the United States policy? How do you get us out of that? What's your position on climate change? Is it a farce, or do you really believe that it's gospel? I wanted to hear questions like that. I don't care that Donald Trump and Rosie O'Donnell had an argument. Rosie O'Donnell started that argument. Rosie O'Donnell said things about the candidate, the Miss USA candidate, that wasn't very polite, wasn't, very pleasing to the ear, and nobody says anything about that. I understand she's not running for president and Donald Trump is, but come on, I don't care. I don't care about little feuds like that. So move on. Get some other moderators who are going to come in there and be impartial and just do their job. Frankly, if you're going to pick somebody from Fox News, I think Judge Jeanine might be a really good candidate. I could see a judge being more impartial than Megyn Kelly or anybody else. And now comes news that the GOP head, more precisely the Republican National Committee chairman, Reince Priebus, basically says that, he thinks Megyn Kelly was fair. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with her. And he's okay with Hugh Hewitt as being a co-moderator on the next GOP debate, despite Hewitt's public criticism, again, of the front runner, Donald Trump. He said that on Meet the Press this Sunday, Hewitt said he believes Trump does not have the temperament to be president of the United States. He doubled down on that on Morning Joe on MSNBC on Monday morning. He's interviewed every major Republican candidate this cycle and demonstrated an ability to ask tough, fair, and balanced questions that Republican voters care about, according to a spokeswoman for the RNC. Here we go again. The American public, Mr. Priebus, whether you think he's fair or not, he's already come out and said negative things about Donald Trump. How do you say that's fair? If somebody asked me to be on a panel right now and said, we want you to ask Donald Trump questions, there should be questions as to whether or not I can be fair with Donald Trump, because I've just said to you, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. Now, does that mean I can't do the job? No. But I think people should question that. I think I would be a better moderator, honest to God. I would think up questions, again, that matter to the American public. And whatever the answers are, let it be what it is. I don't know what Donald Trump is going to say. I do know there are times when he says things like, well, let's have Mexico build the wall. Great idea, but how are you going to do that? And that'd be my follow-up question. Great idea, but how do you propose that that's going to happen? What's the last time, or when was the last time that Mexico helped us do anything and gave us money for? I mean, I can remember, in San Diego, down at the bays are so polluted because, nobody wants to talk about this, but pollution comes over from Mexico into our waters. And guess who had to clean that up and make it so that it could be sanitized? It wasn't Mexico. It was the United States. So all well and good about building that wall, but how are you going to get Mexico to pay it? I want to know more about what each candidate thinks about immigration too. You hear one or two questions and that's it. Let's get back to asking pertinent questions. We didn't vet the last candidate for the, Obama. It wasn't vetted at all. I mean, they basically handed him the questions on a silver platter, and then when he was faltering a bit, or they thought he was, they answered for him. Let's stop doing that. I don't care what your opinion is on Donald Trump. I want to hear what he has to say, just like I want to hear what everybody else has to say. And we're not doing that. The 5 o'clock debates were so much better. My gosh. If there was an agenda there, I didn't see it. It didn't feel like there was an agenda. And I really learned something about each candidate by the questions they were asked. And Carly Fiorina, in that debate, came through and showed herself as a viable candidate. Now, and I was after that, I said, if I had to vote right now, this very minute, after of all the people that I heard just now on the panel, if my only decision could be from what I heard right now, vote right now, it would have been for Carly Fiorina. She sounded like a president. She sounded like she knew what she was doing. I don't know if she really does or not. I mean, it's too early to tell, but she did a great job. And we need to vet her more. The downside is that she came from California. I live in California. I understand. She no longer lives in California. But she came from humble beginnings. She was a secretary that rose to the top and became a CEO of Hewlett-Packard. That is a pretty amazing feat. Don't know too many people who have been able to do something like that. Her husband is also was from humble beginnings. I believe he was a truck driver. Now, some of the downsides that I've heard is, oh my gosh, well, she worked on the McCain campaign. Okay. When you go back and you look at that, I believe she was on the finance part of the McCain campaign. Would you have rather that she worked for a Democrat on his or her campaign? I mean, let's be reasonable here. Do I like John McCain? No, I don't like his politics at all. But she was helping out who the Americans picked. as their presidential candidate. And don't forget, Sarah Palin was John McCain's VP choice. So if you don't like Carly Fiorina because she helped out with John McCain, how can you still like Sarah Palin, who ran with him on the ticket? It makes no sense. Again, go back and do your homework. Do your research. Don't just look at that in the news and go, oh my God, she helped John McCain, I'm out. If you do, then you're also a person who was out when it comes to Sarah Palin. Now, there are some things that Fiorina has said that, again, we need to look at, and we need to see exactly what that means. Did she change her mind? Was it such a great mind-changing event that you can't believe it? You know, for example, like when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama said that they weren't for gay marriage, and then all of a sudden they evolved, and then they became for gay marriage. Something tells me they were always for gay marriage, and they just didn't want to talk about it. There's no evolving, but let's just take it, well, was there an evolving? If so, that is such a drastic evolving event that I don't believe it. I don't believe that you just one day, you know, woke up and you're suddenly changed in a major, major way. Now, Carly Fiorina did speak out against Cruz during the time that he sort of, you know, shut down the government, so to speak, when he was speaking on the floor and kept going with that. She didn't like that. You know, a lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people talked about it. I, for one, thought he did a great job. I don't think he was grandstanding. I think that he was trying to get a point across, and he was trying to do what he felt was in the best interest of the American people. Again, you should go look and see what she actually said. And is that such a major change from her stance today? In addition, she's recently come out and said that John Boehner and Mitch McConnell need to step down. Basically, the feeling of most people, they're just not doing their jobs for the GOP. They're the water boy for Barack Obama. If people can't see that, then we must be looking at two different people, because how many backdoor deals can you do with Obama when you said, you're for the American people and we're going to go in there and fight and repeal Obamacare and repeal this and repeal that, and the next day you're out playing golf with Obama and you're behind the closed doors working out deals with him. I don't think her position on that is so far-fetched from anyone else. But you have to also say, well, if, let's say in the past she said something pro John Boehner, so did everyone of the GOP who didn't vote John Boehner out as Speaker of the House. So do you want to get rid of all of them? I was so disappointed in my congressman who didn't go in there and stand up and vote John Boehner out. And I think a lot of people were just afraid, oh gosh, we can't do that, then he'll hate us. And guess what? They're right. Look what he's done to Representative Louis Gohmert, taking him off of different things at different committees, or not letting him do his job as he's supposed to do in the committee, and traveling different places. So yes, there are repercussions, but it's also about standing up for principle. So, were her things that she said in the past and pro John Boehner so far different from what she's saying now? Doesn't seem to be, but you need to really look at her, research her background, go back and see things that she said, find out, is she different as night and day now? So far, I'm not seeing that. Do I want her as the presidential candidate? I don't know. Again, way too early. I tell you who I do like. I do like her. But I like Ted Cruz. And I like Ted Cruz because of the fact that he's a constitutionalist. We are so far away from the Constitution and the principles of the Founding Fathers that we need someone who is going to start applying the law again. You know, we have a Supreme Court who makes law in violation of the U.S. Constitution. We have a president who continues to write executive orders, illegal executive orders, in violation of the U.S. Constitution. We have Congress who's supposed to enact laws, but who don't, who aren't doing their jobs. This is ridiculous. This is not America. We need somebody who's going to bring that around. And for all of those people out there who are saying, well, Ted Cruz can't run because he's not a natural-born citizen. Look it up. He is. The definition, if you go look it up, says his scenario, he was born to his parents, one parent at least, was an American citizen. He may not have been born on American soil. It doesn't matter. Go look at the law. Law has been amended as well. Go look it up. John McCain, as you might recall, was born off of the soil of the United States to American-born parents. And nobody questioned his ability to run for the presidency. I think we need to start looking at the important stuff, get off of the fact of this, you know, he can't be a president because he's not a citizen, whatever. You got to let those things go. You just have to go by the law, and if you go look at the law and read the most recent law on that, you will see that he qualifies. End of report. That's it. End of story. So if we want to keep arguing with each other or arguing over the little things, you know, we're going to get whomever the Democrats put out there or Jeb Bush. We really need to start doing our homework. We really do need to do things that really matter. I'm not looking forward necessarily to the next debate because I think that we have a moderator, Megyn Kelly, who is very arrogant. She's probably as arrogant as Donald Trump, just in a different way. She's not willing to look at anything that she did or said and change it in any way or say maybe I could have done it better or this, that, and the other. And there are people very much in support of what she did and feel that she did an excellent job and that Donald Trump, you know, was a whiner. Okay. You know, that's fine. You have your opinion. We're not all going to have the same opinion. It's not ever going to happen. But I think that we need to start having debates that uncover for us all who these people really are. Let them either hang themselves or win. We don't need to do the job for them. I know that after the debates, Ted Cruz went up in the polls. Ben Carson went up in the polls. And you know what? See, they had the lesser times. They spoke less than anybody else. And maybe that was a good thing. Maybe nobody knew exactly what they stood for, but they didn't know how bad they were. I mean, the little sort of back and forth with Chris Christie and Rand Paul didn't work well for Rand Paul. You know, we've seen this over and over again. We've seen the infighting with the GOP. It doesn't play well on TV. But what we did hear of Ben Carson, what we did hear of Ted Cruz, I really liked. I mean, I saw Ben Carson as who he is, an intelligent man who doesn't want to get into game playing, who just wants to get the job done. I don't know, you know, if he's an eloquent enough speaker or quick enough to in a comeback, and how well he's going to continue to do, and especially if they give him more time. I want them to give him more time anyway, regardless of what I think. I want to hear more. And when Ted Cruz spoke, he had a lot of great things to say. I want to hear more of Ted Cruz. And I like the fact that Carly this time is probably going to get to sit at the big boys' table, where she should have been perhaps in the first place. But I don't know how much longer we're going to see Rick Perry around. My understanding is that he's not paying the people that are working for him now in the campaign, that those people that are working for him still are volunteers. that's not a good sign. But, perhaps his time and Rick Santorum, perhaps their time is already come and gone, and, we'll have to see. I do know that according to reports that Bernie Sanders has beat Hillary Clinton in the latest New Hampshire poll. And especially what came out yesterday about her having at least 2 top secret emails on her personal server is not good news for Hillary Clinton. Now, whether or not it'll mean anything, because we know that the FBI, the part of the DOJ, has gone in there and gotten her servers and her USB ports and all that. So is that really going to matter? Are they going to just keep that information and hold on to it until after the elections? Or is Hillary more likely than not to say, you know what, I didn't send those emails. It must have been someone else who came to my house. So we'll have to see if she throws Huma under the bus or not. It'll be interesting. But as with the Clintons, usually they don't do anything on their own. Somebody else is the one, who did it. They just were innocent. Kind of reminds you of somebody else, huh? And then finally in the news today, we have a new video. Planned Parenthood harvested organs without the consent of the mothers. Said there were times they would just take what they wanted. And this is from a former employee of STEM Express. Now you may recall that STEM Express is a California organization that went in and got a TRO, temporary restraining order, against the leader of the Center for Medical Progress, the ones that are the videographers. So they can stop him from talking, but they can't stop their former employee from talking, or they haven't yet. But I'm pretty sure she had better be able to back up what she's saying, because they're likely to come after her, because they need to make it look like these are all lies, that they haven't done anything wrong. So she talks about, she singled out one particular abortionist, Ron Berman, an abortionist with Planned Parenthood, for his abortion and harvesting practices. She said he had a reputation for going viciously fast. If there wasn't a girl in the operating room, he would get mad, she continued. He would pace the hallway if there wasn't something to do. It's almost like he wanted to do it, and that made me really concerned. Well, it's going to be, again, very interesting, and more videos to come. These are all extremely despicable videos, extremely despicable things that are going on with Planned Parenthood. And I know that some people are rising up, but we really, we need the entire United States to rise up over this and demand that Planned Parenthood be defunded. And again, this may be one of those fails that the GOP will say, gosh, well, we tried last time, but we didn't want to do anything then, but we're going to try again, and gosh, we're going to give it our best, and if we don't make it, it's not because we didn't try. BS. If you don't make it with a majority rule in the House and the Senate, it's because you didn't try. You didn't do it. You didn't make it happen. You didn't do your job. That's what it's going to say. And if you're so cowardly that you won't, then, if you don't want to stop this evil, then we have an issue. You can't sit there and look at videos of baby parts and not see how evil it is for somebody to be casually sitting there talking about how much they're going to get off of the baby parts while they're sipping on wine and eating their lunch, as if nothing is happening. We really need to start looking at where our country is going and who's representing this country and what we can do about it. We have got to stand up. We've got to speak out. So until next time, please come back and join me on Stand for Truth Radio. And I'll have a very special guest next week. You're really going to enjoy this guest. He has a great book out, and it's going to be a great interview. So invite somebody. Until next time, this is Susan Knowles with Stand for Truth Radio. Take care, and God bless you.